We'll go ahead and get started. We are recording this, so it'll be available in replays, and anyone who signed up will get it in their inbox. So to make sure that we're not here all night, why don't we go ahead and kick this off? So first of all, welcome everyone to How to Build a Digital Case File. We're excited to have you here tonight. My name is Ashley. I'm head of community with Uncovered. Rachael, who will be driving this ship pretty soon, is head of our data and research. So excited to have her share her insights with you tonight. But I wanted to share a little bit about who we are. I know many of you here are very familiar, but some of you might not be. We are building a comprehensive database of the more than 200,000 unsolved cases of the murdered and missing. So what that looks like is we're visualizing cases like never before. So we're pulling in photos, people, timelines, events, and a victim-first approach to our work to make sure that everything is sourced and there's an opportunity to utilize data within that as well. But that also means that we're building an engaged community of citizen detectives who are interested in doing thoughtful citizen detective work to make sure that we keep these stories at the forefront and that we're able to uncover answers. So what that looks like is we appreciate everyone's talents and the collective impact that everyone brings to the community and the community that we are building together. And that we're also providing awareness to the cases that people might not know about or might not have heard about, and an opportunity to develop our skills, to learn from each other, to learn from experts, to utilize resources, and to advocate for those cases that need attention for the family members, for the victims, and to hopefully make sure that these cases have some sort of resolution, or to utilize, again, our collective impact and the idea of social pressure to elevate these cases. But that's not all. We're also incorporating data. And what that looks like is very detailed. And that starts with all of you who are here, who are contributing to that. But I will let Rachael talk more specifically about that.
So I'm going to advance my own slides now. So just a review of what we hope you guys could take away, you ladies could take away from tonight is we want to arm you with the tools to be the best citizen detectives that you can. So we're going to talk a little bit about different ways in our community that you can engage in research, and we'll kind of talk about where we see that going in the future. We'll offer you our tips and tricks, and please do share back your tips and tricks as we go through this. But a lot of the focus is going to be on the Uncovered digital case file. We're unveiling a updated tool from what you guys have seen before if you're in our community and have helped research cases. So we love to share that with you. But then it's going to be really tonight a step-by-step process of telling you exactly what type of information we like to get at Uncovered to visualize our cases. We're going to be very specific about it, and we're going to show you how what you give us gets turned into the website, and it's going to be very detailed instruction, so sort of demystifying that process of what we do, and hopefully to make it easier for you to go through this process with us. So there are really three big buckets of ways that you can engage in our community. You can do some research on your own. We have a case research center in our community, as many of you are familiar with, where you can join groups of cases, or you can pick a case such as the MMIW cases that you can research on your own. We have a few of our ladies here tonight who are working on a group case together, the Benton County Jane Doe, and they meet, I think once a week. We all are meeting for an hour we try, but more like 2 hours because we have so much good discussion going on and it's hard to let go. So whatever, however you prefer to engage and to do research, I would say there's probably an opportunity for you to do it. If you don't feel like you can do research or have the time commitment to do on your own, you can do it with a buddy. But we want to help you engage in whatever way you can. I'll also say that we love to get case captains, and we do have some case captains on this call. We're going to be getting more definition around that process, but generally speaking, especially in our community, you're really that case's cheerleader. You let people know if you need help researching something on the case, or you want eyes on something, or if you would like help promoting it on social, you can reach out to our community and do that. You're also kind of monitoring new news about the case. So perhaps you're setting Google alerts, or you're just, as you scour the web for the case, you're just constantly looking up things. But it's a really that chance for you to own that and really get involved in that case. So if you're interested in any of those, if you're interested in being a case captain, you can go to the Case Research Center, or you can DM me, and we can get you hooked up with that process. But hopefully tonight, you'll know where to go when you need those tools. So just a little bit about what makes Uncovered different from other cold case websites you've been on before. We're really bringing the case down to objects, people, places, sources, events, and we're tying it all together in a way that has never been done before. So you can click on a person in the case and see what location they were at or what event happened with those people. I'm sorry, my husband's coming home and my dogs are going crazy. But then you can also see how people are connected with one another. So it gives you a really interactive and visualized way to understand the case at a different level. And it's part of our mission to bring more thoughtful discussion into these cases. So you guys are here together as our community, helping us make a difference. And so we want to pay that forward with giving you some great tips and tools to really take this case research to a next level. We don't talk about it a lot. Ashley mentioned it, but wanted to chat about the database real quick. Your data that you're collecting for us doesn't just go up on the website and into that sort of void. We're also building this huge comprehensive database on the back end so that someday we're going to have all of these cases in one place where law enforcement, where citizen detectives, where families can come to and perhaps research statistics or learn more information about the case. So without further ado, want to let you know that this document here, along with our new updated digital case research file, will be out in the community. We're also going to give you a tandem Notion document that details out a lot of what I'm saying very specifically. So it's a step-by-step process of what we're working on tonight. And you will have access all the time as part of the community. You can go into the case research and go into the knowledge center, and you'll be able to link to the digital case tool that we're previewing tonight, as well as these documents. But I want to preface all of this with reminding everyone that the victim is really the center of what we do. And as case researchers, it's really important that we keep them at the forefront of what we do. So we are not just here to be entertainment for people to come in and consume the information and not do anything. We want to move them to advocacy. We want them to engage in thoughtful discussion and promote cases and promote awareness through social media. As researchers, we want you to take a thoughtful approach to that. What can we contribute to uniquely to this case that you haven't seen elsewhere? What theories can we debunk that is not contributing to the conversation? How can we bring ethical information into the discussion? So I ask you as we go forward and we talk about different pieces about writing case narratives and what ethical sources we might cite, that we're always mindful that behind all of this is a victim and a victim's family, and we're here to support and uplift them. So we're gonna walk through this process in the way that I might typically research them, and I'm hoping Mackenzie's going to jump in here too, how Mackenzie might research them, just to give you an insight into how we might do it. Everybody's going to have their own process, and I would love to hear your ideas and your thoughts. But this is kind of the most efficient way I've identified that it works for me. So how I usually start out in a case is with the sources. And that's really, your info, your fact gathering process. So some cases are only going to have a few sources, of course, and some are going to have tons and tons of them. What I typically do is open up my digital case file and I just Google search the heck out of everything and record all of that just in the sources page. You're just gathering all the kind of things that you can find out there. And what kind of information are we looking for? It's blogs, it's newspapers, it's podcasts, YouTube channels, public records, of course, of any kind. It's really, in the beginning, it's really about getting your hands on as much information as you can. I know a lot of us are present on Reddit and Web Sleuths, and it's also okay to look at some of that information and bring that into your sources file. I wouldn't say cite it in your timeline as fact, but it is a good way to really start thinking about where you might find information. And I think it's really helpful to start with the sources, because once you get into that sort of Google searching, you can be really iterative about the different keywords that you might find. So you might put quotes around the victim's name, or search it without quotes, or add the state, or missing, or murdered. But really, I would encourage you to just see that process out until you feel like you've exhausted what you can find for the sources. If anybody has any questions too, please just feel free to jump in or make a comment. We will provide in the Notion document that we share with you some typical starting places. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Charlie Project. She is a great resource. That's one of the places I start. Of course, we have some of those government databases like the NamUs and NCMEC, the DOE network. Those are all really great information. If you guys have access to newspapers.com, it's one of my favorites. That is paid content though, so you do have to subscribe to that. And then also for looking up podcast content, Podchaser is our preferred site for that. That will, you just put in a name and it will list all the different episodes, or if there is a case with it's multi-part, it'll show that too. So a look at what you need to record in the digital case file in terms of sources. We're going to ask you for the title of the source, and I want the newspaper title. You don't have to retitle it. You can say whatever the podcast title is, whatever the newspaper title is, and we want the name of the source. And this is kind of tricky because sometimes a source has posted another source on their website. I would encourage you to go to the initial source of the document. While working on my PhD, those are secondary citations. We don't really want to do any of that. We want to go to the original source and cite that. You're going to share the link, of course, with us so that we can go back and readers can really see that on our website and click and read that article if they want to. One of the new things that we're doing is archiving at the same time. So if you guys have done cold case research, you know you've gotten that 404 message that news story doesn't exist anymore. as we're researching cold cases, we have a lot of what is called link rot, where that newspaper article has been taken down, or victims' cases have just sort of fallen off the internet, and then you can't find anything at all. So if we're going to list a site on our source, we want to actively archive it, so that when somebody comes back to look at the resources later, we won't have that page not found problem. There will be an archived version. And if you're not familiar with archiving, in the Notion document that we will share, there's explicit instructions on which website you can go to archive the article, and actually a step-by-step process. I might have recorded a little Loom video. You'll find that in there here often, but we're not sharing any resources there that you have to download anything or that you have to pay to archive. It's all free. But that's just simply to combat the problem where somebody clicking on a source and not being able to see what you saw. Things that you don't typically have to archive are media content like podcasts or a YouTube video. Those things, essentially when we archive, we're just taking a picture of the page. So things like that don't need to be archived, or things that are dynamically generated. So if you've ever looked at a NCMEC poster, those don't actually live separately. It's dynamically generated when you click on the link for that case, so they don't archive properly. And some social media doesn't archive either. You may have seen that we have a space on our digital case tool to say a featured source. So what that means to us is, did you find a source that you thought was particularly amazing, that you thought had so much information that everybody should really listen to this, or that source should really get kudos for their depth of coverage? Let us know so we can pull that out onto the main page and let everybody know that. So does anybody have any questions about sources? Okay. So we'll move on to the case overview. So that's usually the information that I tend to populate next. And here we just give you a snapshot on where you see that from our website. But the case overview is the person's name, whether they're classified as missing, murdered, or suspicious deaths. It's where you tell us when they went missing, when they were found, when they were murdered, all of those key dates really in a victim profile. And then birth date is one that we also ask for as well, so we can understand how old the victim was at the time of the incident. Surprisingly, birth dates are often really hard to find. If you can't find it, that's okay. Just tell us what age they were when the event happened. We're also going to ask you for city and state on this page. And city and state here is just generally, where did the crime occur? Sometimes people are from they live in a different city than where the crime occurred. Really, we're just trying to pinpoint where the crime occurred here. The other piece on the case overview page is a 1-sentence description, and it's really the headline for our case. So how can we catch the reader's attention to investigate this further? And I say that and encourage you to all remember that it's not something to be salacious about. It's more of framing our case in such a way that maybe someone out there can identify with the story and click to read further. So 1-sentence headline, it's meant to catch the reader's attention, meant to say something about the case, but please don't be salacious. We just want to get the reader to move on. Next, where I go And this is a preview for you tonight to let you know about a future update to our site. It's actually really coming soon. Based on a lot of your feedback, we're updating the site to be able to add some physical characteristics. So what was the color of the victim's hair, their eyes? How much did they weigh? Did they have any distinguishing characteristics? So that's directly feedback from you guys that we took into this next iteration of the website. The other thing that we incorporated that you guys said is important are case numbers. So there will be areas to put NCMEC numbers, NamUs case numbers, and then general case numbers. So whether that be an FBI case number or state or local case number, put it in there if you find that. That way, if somebody has some information, they can say it's about case whatever. It also helps people search and research the case if they can sort of track a case over time. The Charlie Project always does a very good detailing of this type of information. NamUs is great as well, and you can capture a lot of this information at one of those sites. We're also adding to our case research page is tribe affiliation. That is something new as well. We are lucky, and she's on our call tonight, to have a new advisor to Uncovered. And you know, she's keeping us abreast of things that we might want to think about as we're researching cases about missing and murdered Indigenous people and what might be important to show. And one of those things is tribe affiliation. So when we're researching a case and we find that information, please fill that in that space, because that may help people understand why certain things were done or not done. And it is really important to the victim's story. So from there, let's see. Well, I'll just mention a thing about pictures, which is also part of the case overview. So we haven't requested this much in the past, but I would love to get you guys submitting some pictures to us. Usually we try to get at least 3 good pictures of the victim. That can be really hard sometimes, but usually the more pictures you can find, the better, right? As you're researching pictures and suggesting them to us, I would really encourage you to not link to mugshots or other unflattering pictures. I understand that if the mugshot is the only thing you can find, it is important to have a visual, but you know, again, victim first. If this happened to you and you had a rough time and you had a mugshot, I don't think any of us would want that picture going forward as the picture of us. So again, try to select pictures that show the beautiful person that they were, and show their lives. You will find a step-by-step guide on to how to find the best quality photos, thanks to Mackenzie's last minute coaching. Today, we have this nice little Loom video that says, here's how you can find the highest quality picture. It breaks my heart when we have to put fuzzy pictures up of people. So if we can find the best ones, then that's important. If you have other photos that you come across that you think would be helpful to the case, such as pictures of evidence, appropriate pictures, of course, we don't want anything that is disturbing or salacious. A picture of a house, a picture of a car, somebody's created a map. Those are other things that we can tag to, like the events timeline or a locations timeline. That helps really visualize this case for people. In terms of, and we'll get there in a second, we'll talk about populating the people relevant to the case. I only need 1 picture of people other than the victim, but I do love usually as many good pictures of the victim as we can get. So let's see, we'll move on to tips. So obviously a key component of the case, we're asking people to take action based on the information that they've seen. So we need to tell them where to go if they know something about the case. One thing I would caution you on is that since we're researching cold cases, a lot of times the detective in charge or the law enforcement person in charge can change a lot. So if you're looking at an article from 10 years ago, who knows if that law enforcement individual is still in charge of the case. So if I would encourage you to list the department's contact information rather than a specific individual. Of course, it's certainly fine to do, but just be mindful of the fact that may change. And I want to give people the most relevant information that they can get. So oftentimes that's a law enforcement person they can call with tips. It can also be family members. Sometimes people will have a Justice For page and they will say, you can contact us directly with tips. I mean, use your best judgment, of course. Uncovered has a policy that all tips go to law enforcement, but be aware that there are several ways that people could submit tips: Crime Stoppers, law enforcement. And also remember that it's just not a number to call anymore. A lot of law enforcement have places you can submit a tip on a website. You can text tips, you can email tips. So make sure that we provide all the information to people so that they know where to reach out. The other thing we would love to start tracking is if there is a reward or not. So while you're researching, if you come across that there's, a $5,000 reward for information, please let us know that. There's a space for that in the tool now, and let us know the amount of the reward so we can also pass that information along as well. So in line with our moving people from entertainment to advocacy, one of my favorite features of our case file is letting people know what else they can do. So we try to find at least 3 to 5 ways that people can help with this case. And I personally try to find a variety of things that people can do, from like, just tweet this out, just share her information or share his information, to I need you to listen to this voicemail and see if you can figure out what this person's saying. Like, try to offer all levels that people can engage with this case or bring this case along. Like, if you have a piece of a victim's clothing and you want to see if anybody recognizes that pattern, it can be something like that. Think about contribute to the case, contribute to the GoFundMe account. Sign and share a petition. Do you need, I saw one today of people urging the law enforcement to release a case file. Or it can be like, as I mentioned, you listened to this podcast, you thought it was a really great thing. You should really listen to that. That could be a call to action. Sharing NECMEC posters, anything like that could be a call to action. But again, I try to give people a variety of things that they can do. One other thing I think is really great to include, and we started to do, is there something that we can help educate people on? So if we know that, or we believe that a case might be related to domestic violence, is there a government domestic violence website that you can link to help educate people? Or is there information or a website that you can talk to that talks about the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people? Can we link to a place that will help people understand, help people care, help people educate? So when you're looking for this information, we're going to ask for a couple of pieces of information. You're going to really talk to this headline. So pick a headline. What do you want them to do? Watch this video, share this poster, listen to this podcast. And then you'll have a longer description like, watch this video to see if you can help identify this brand's not the right word, but what type of truck this is, the manufacturer of a truck. Or, submitted tips. If you know the whereabouts of a certain person, please call, this police department. And if there's a link that they can connect to view the picture or whatever, that's also helpful as well. So moving on, one of the cool things about Uncovered too is how we show locations. So when you think about locations, what is relevant to help the person understand the story? If there's 2 locations, like she left from her home and then she went to McDonald's. I mean, it's great to have, her home or the approximate location of his home and then McDonald's. I tend to do things like victims' residences, workplaces, location where the victim was last seen, location of where they found a person's body, schools, anything that really helps us tell the story. Approximate locations are okay. If you can't find exactly where, it's okay to say, it was near the intersection of Elm and Maple. That's okay too. We're just trying to give the reader a general sense of where things happened. So a couple of pieces of information. We need a name. I would keep it real short. Ashley's house, Rachel's work, and then a city and the state. It helps if you have an address to put that in here so we can make sure we get, the most exact information. We do ask for coordinates, and there is a Loom video in here so you can really watch that. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but you can go to Google Maps and you can put in the exact address. It'll drop a pin in there. You can right click on it and it copies those coordinates to your clipboard. It's a pretty easy process. But we use those coordinates to put those little pins on our map that you see there. So that's why that's helpful. And then this is so unbelievably important. And actually, I had a chuckle because Anna and Ashley were walking me through a website and they're like, we don't have a lot of descriptions on the location. I'm like, why is this important? But some people will just click on the map. Oops, sorry, I can't do it here. And it'll pop up, and it's helpful to the reader to say, to know that this is, Ashley's house. This is where she left the day she was last seen. So something, just a short description to help ease of understanding for the reader. Okay, people. I think this is one of the favorite aspects of our website. I mean, I don't know how many times I've listened to a podcast where I wanted to just see who they were talking about. So a couple of rules of thumb. I only try to include people that are referenced in the timeline. So if you know everybody in her family, but you're not really going to reference them in the timeline of events, I wouldn't include them. I don't know that we need to put someone out there that doesn't really play into helping us understand the case. The victim should always be the first person you list in people. Always. This is their case. This is their story. I know we think we've detailed them out elsewhere, but again, that victim first, victim focused approach, the victim is always the first person you list here. We do not ever identify someone as a suspect unless law enforcement has publicly stated, and you can point me to where that is, that victim is a suspect. I think the genre, the true crime genre, has a very complicated history with this type of information, identifying people who were innocent and people have been hurt. So unless someone is publicly named as a suspect, we're never going to do that. We will list them as a person who might have information about the case, but that's really how far. We're not into speculation, so it's really important that we don't do that. So if you list somebody as a suspect and you can't show me where the law enforcement has said they're a suspect, I'm going to change it every time. Also, minors, children, if they are currently a child, we don't want to name them. We don't want to show pictures. We want to protect those children. If the case was 20 years ago and now they're an adult and they are relevant to the story, sure. But if they're a child, maybe, child 1, child 2, but we're not going to name them and put their pictures out there. So what types of information do we hope to get from you on the people? We, of course, want their name and a description of them. Tell me why they're relevant to this case, why it's important. I also think I've started including quotes from people because I think it's part of helping people understand why this is important, to hear that a mother is just hoping that her baby comes home and hoping that her baby's body was found. And so I think we need to show people the reality of this without being sensational, of course. But I have included quotes in here, but really tell me, who is this person and why are they relevant to the case? In their relationship with the victim, when you get the Notion document, you'll see I have predefined categories. I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's situation. So it will say parent of a victim, not mother of a victim or father of the victim. Sometimes we don't know if they want to be identified that way. Just trying to be respectful of gender issues, complicated relationships. If you want to put in the victim's description that it was the brother of the victim, that's fine. But that general overall description is really parent, sibling, grandparent, that sort of thing. A link to a picture. Pictures are super hard to find. Just try your best. If you can't find it, that's okay. We also ask for birthday and date of death. I don't think that's relevant to anybody but the victim. Perhaps sometimes if there are people of interest and we know they've died now, it is helpful to know that. But I wouldn't spend a huge amount of time trying to find the birthday and the death date of every person that you put in this story. So I think everything's cool, I think, is what I've said tonight. But one of the key differentiating features of Uncovered is that timeline. If you talk to law enforcement, this is really the crux of their case, building out this timeline. So I think it's really helpful for us as citizen detectives to try to detail out this information as much as we can. This is usually one of the last things I do, because the rest of the time we're trying to understand and process the information and pull all these pieces together. This part ties the people, the locations, and everything together. So this is really important. How many events did you include? It's going to vary. We try to have at least 4 to 6 events. Sometimes that's hard. When in many of these cases, we're talking about marginalized audiences that have been overlooked by the media. So we don't know those things, but we try to build out that timeline. So what types of events, places the victim was last seen, maybe they posted on social media. Did law enforcement hold news conferences? Were there rewards offered? Evidence found, court dates. It really can be anything to help us understand what happened to that victim. What types of information do we want here? And this is why this is one of the last things I do, because it is a little bit more involved. But event summary, that should be really short, like a sentence, like Rachael went to McDonald's. That just really a short headline is what we're going for. We like to include the order of the event. So how did these things go in order? She first went to McDonald's, and then she went to the dry cleaners, and she went to school, that sort of thing. Your longer description is really where, if you have more to say about what happened, that's really where you're telling us. Like, she went to McDonald's and she met her best friend, and they had French fries and a flurry, and then they left there to go someplace else. The date of the event, of course. There are 2 columns here, time and approximate time. If you know the exact time and you can reference it, then go ahead and say that this happened at 12:10 p.m. If you don't know, but you know a general time, like morning, afternoon, evening, this is where approximate time of day. What you're going to do then after here is tie it to other things that you've already filled out. So you're going to cite a location if you know it from your locations. You shouldn't be citing locations here that are not actually detailed out in the locations piece of the tool. The same thing for people. Keep this all tied back to the people that you detailed out earlier in the tool. And sources, this is really important. This is where you need to show your work. Really important that things that we do are evidence-based and not speculation. So tell me where you got that information, and tell me, and this cannot be, I saw it on Reddit. This has to be that I saw a police report and it said X, and I saw this article and this article, and they all said the same thing. So this is show us your work. I need to be able to look it up and see that that is what happened. Again, if you can't cite it, if you can't point the reader to places where they can actually see and verify that information, then you probably shouldn't be putting that on your timeline. We're not speculating, we're proving, we're citing the sources here. Event image, again, that's that what I mentioned earlier with pictures. If it's a map or a picture of a tree or whatever that is, if you think it would be helpful for the reader to see that, then let us know. And then finally, we want you to let us know, which of these events stand out more than the others. So what is a significant event? You'll notice on our timeline that significant events are a different color, but that's just to say, hey, this was really important. So pictures, we already covered pictures, but big questions. You will have a space in the new tool to list out questions and theories you might have about the case. And I want to be clear on the theorizing. Again, we're not here to talk about salacious things. We're not here to get wild and crazy. If you want to put forth a credible theory based in some sort of factual information that you can point to that you think will advance the discussion, we want to hear it. You guys have been in this case, you've been looking at it. I am sure many of you have thought of things like, I wish I could know this, or if we could solve for that, I think this could really move the case forward. We want to know those things. Future Uncovered State will include probably discussions. So these thought starters, these theories that you have could be thought starters for those discussions. But again, I really want to encourage you, while you're theorizing and putting your questions in, keep your victim first and keep it focused on advancing an ethical and thoughtful discussion about the case. Last thing, and then I'm going to stop talking to you guys. Back to part of the case overview. This case narrative here that you guys have seen is super important. We know that sometimes people come to our website and they just read the narrative. So this is our chance to really tell them all about the case. I know everybody is not a writer. I do know that this is very difficult to do. So don't worry if you're not a writer, that's okay. What we have done is is break this down into some key buckets of information we need. So tell us about the victim. And here I want you to be really, try to personalize it. Like, who was he? What kinds of things did he love to do? Was he a father? Was he a son? Did he love horses? I want people to be able to read these stories and identify with these people so that they care about what's happened to them. So tell us about the person. Doesn't mean telling that they were a sex worker. It doesn't mean saying they had drug addictions. But really tell them why it was great to know this person. Other things, what happened the day of their disappearance, or what happened the day of the murder? Can you tell us what was going on that day? Another bucket is, where does the case stand today? Are they waiting to process? We know it's unsolved, so we don't need to say that. But is it hinging on some DNA being run through a database? Are the police looking for specific pieces of information? That's the type of stuff we want there. A lot of times that's not going to be available. So there's some other things in there like, can you tell us what, describe the country where, or describe the part of the country where it's at, or were there significant events happening at that time? If you say that it was in the middle of a World Series, people might be able to think, oh gosh, I remember that, and be drawn into the case. Is there something special about that location? Is it known for something? Is there an opportunity to educate people? I just wrote a narrative the other day where the individual was part of a Native American tribe, and I thought this is a great opportunity to educate people about these Indigenous people and their values and what they hold dear. So it can be something like that, but we want to really bring this case home to our readers. So if you want to take a swing at it, and really, if you love to write and love to tell stories, we would love for you to try that. If you can't, can you just give us some quick details about what was important to this person? What happened that day? Where is the case now? What do you want people to do after reading this story? And then the case research team can take that and weave it all together. So that was a lot of information. I know I've thrown a lot at you. Just know that after in the next couple of days, we will be posting all of this and all of the detail in the community, in the case research section. So if you have access to that, be on the lookout for that. I would encourage all of you to visit the case research. We are, with Lexi's help, we're going to start creating more spaces to get you actively involved. And so, for instance, if you want to work on cases involving children, there'll be a section for that, or cases for murdered and missing Black persons, will be able to direct you there. And grab the new research tool. I think we've made updates. I think it's the digital case file tool. I think it's great. But just know, I gave you a lot of information. You can replay this. You can access all of this information. We'll put those links in there. And Ashley, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing all of this great detailed information. As Rachel mentioned, this will all be emailed to you. So if you signed up, wonderful, you'll be getting it in your inbox. And it will also be available in the knowledge base section as well as the research section. So the tool that Rachel mentioned, the Notion doc, all there. So how else can you get involved? The smallest thing that you can do is just share content. So there are over 200,000 unsolved cases of the missing and murdered. We have over 100 visualized. We're working to add all of those 200,000 cases to our database, but it is a process. And that's why we need a community to be able to do it. We need thoughtful people who are engaged and want to do this in the right way and the most impactful way. But there's also cases that we don't have visualized that are out there that utilize your agency, your own platform to share that information. Take anything that we have and put it out. I know a lot of us are on social media. We're in our own different platforms, our own Facebook groups, or we just know people in the area. When we first started, we asked 500 people what would get them to do something more than just consume true crime. And number one was knowing the victim, which we all know is very important for us. Number two was just having some semblance of the location. So if you're from a hometown where there's an unsolved case, share that information in your own circles so we can keep the case talked about. We can make sure that these victims aren't victimized again, that we're able to share their information as much as we can. And the number three thing that got people to act was just being told what to do. So hopefully this is an opportunity where we're sharing with you the tools and the resources that you can actually go to the next level. So that looks like maybe even joining our community. So you have access to utilize your research powers and your interest in another way. So you would have access to experts, different types of training, ongoing resources, and that community of people who you can share information with, you can learn something from, and work in a group setting or an individual basis as well. And then number three way that you can kind of get involved tonight is utilizing those resources that we have. So even if you just go to our resource section, if you're not part of our community, which I really encourage you to join, you can join it for free, no charge whatsoever. You can go into our database, you can have access to the Digital Advocacy Center as well. But if you are interested in the next level, the research component is something that is at the membership level. But we have all the resources that are available for free. So in the section of our website, you can see everything from how to do a proper Google Boolean search to how to find property records to, if you're interested in maybe making a career change, what would it be like to be a forensic genealogist? We have very detailed resources that we're curating all the time in order to provide information for people who are out there. And then also taking part in these trainings that we have. Not only do we have these on an ongoing basis, we have our ongoing What Does the Citizen Detective series that many of you I know have participated in, and Dana I know has presented, which has been wonderful. So you get to meet people in the community who've kind of taken the next step and how they're utilizing their special skills, which is wonderful. And other people that we're bringing into that conversation as well. But we're also working on additional bootcamp opportunities. I know some of you have taken part in our public records bootcamp. We'll be offering that again in 2022, and additional opportunities to find resources and have you provide an opportunity to work alongside experts as well. So we have some of our small case groups that are working on some case files right now directly with law enforcement, which is wonderful. We'll continue to offer those opportunities too. So we encourage you to go out to learn more, even if it's not from us, but come back and share so we can build this really thoughtful community around collective impact so we can figure out how we can contribute in a meaningful way to these 200,000 cases that are still unsolved. So,
and I would say, a tag on that, Ashley, this is just our way that we might do things, Rachel's way that she might do things, but you guys have your own strengths and your own tips. This documentation that we're going to provide you is dynamic. We're going to be updating it all the time. So if you think we need to put something in there, let us know. It was your feedback, your contributions that led to some of the updates that we're going to be putting on the website. So what you have to say is important. So please let us know.
Yes, please. All right. We know we've talked a lot. We also know you might have questions. So if you want to throw anything into the chat, you want to raise your hand, please do so. We also know that we're getting up to a time boundary. So if you want to think about it and then maybe post something in our inbox or jump into the water cooler in the community and mention something, please do that as well. We want to keep this conversation going. We want to be able to provide as much as we can to make sure that people feel supported, that it's an inclusive community, and that we're working towards something bigger. So I thank you all so much for your time tonight, for your interest, and your opportunity to want to move just from an interest in this space to advocacy. So thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks.
Well,
It was great, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
wonderful. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
great
we'll see you.
presentation, guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, head to the community to find more information. If not, we'll see you on the internet. Have a
Thanks,
good night,
ladies.
everyone.
Good night.